is Resurrection Sunday. Resurrection Sunday, and how many people understand that if it wasn't for the resurrection, the Bible says not to esteem one day over another, Sister Brenda, but if it wasn't for the resurrection, there'd be no reason for us to be here today. If it wasn't for him getting up and walking out of that tomb, there would be no reason for us to be praising and talking about the power. You know what? Even historically, you can go back and read the writings of people that were not followers of Christ. Read the writings of Josephus, who was not a Christian. He was actually a Pharisee, but you read his writings and he will talk about going into the tomb and finding an empty tomb. You know what? The Bible, the one place in the Bible where it uses the word Easter says that they had guards around the tomb until after Easter because they didn't want somebody sneaking in and grabbing the body and claiming. So you know what? They had soldiers all around. But come Easter, there was a resurrection. Come Easter, there was a resurrection. There was a day that, you know what, that the stone was rolled back. There was a day that the stone was rolled back and he walked out. He walked out. You know what, that resurrection provided a way. It provided a way for us to be here today. It provided a way for us to be able to stand in His presence because of the resurrection. He got up and he walked out. You know what? He got up and he walked out. And you know what? If you read, I don't know if you know the custom. You know, it says that the napkin was folded up and laid. All of his burial clothes were laid there. You know, the napkin that was left. The napkin signifies that they're done. You know, when you're having dinner, and when you take the napkin and you put it on the plate, it lets the servants know that I'm done. You know what? He got up and walked out and he left the napkin. Said, it's done. You know what? It's done. There's no reason anymore that we have to die to sin. There's no reason anymore that we have to be fearful. There's no reason anymore that the devil has anything against us. Because it's done. You know what? So many people want to doubt. So many people feel better not believing. They don't know what they believe. But they want to believe. They want to believe that they don't believe. Have no other explanation. Like I said, there's been several authors, several writers, historically you can go back and read. There was no doubt there was a body there. The stone was put in front of the tomb. It was sealed. No way in, no way out. But isn't it like our God to make a way? Isn't it like our God to make a way? You know what? No stone you're going to put in front of him is going to keep him in. No stone you're going no sin, no burden, no nothing you're going to put in front of him will keep him out. Because he's a way maker. He is a way maker. If you would turn with me this morning to Job chapter 14, starting with verse 1. And if this isn't the truest statement ever written, man that is born of a woman, and it is a few days and full of trouble. There is no doubt, if man's been born of a woman, give it a few days and there's going to be trouble. That's not my words, that's God's word. I'm not sure if it's because he's a man or because he came from a woman. But a few days and it's full of trouble. It says, he cometh forth like a flower and is cut down. He fleeth also as a shadow and continueth not. And doth thou open thine eyes upon such an one, and bringest me into judgment with thee? Who can bring a clean thing out of an unclean? Not one. Seeing his days are determined, the number of his months are with thee. Thou hast appointed his bounds that he cannot pass. Turn from him that he may rest, till he shall accomplish as an hireling his day. For there is no hope of a tree, if it be cut down, that it will sprout again. There's no hope that once it's cut down, it will sprout again. No hope. And that the tender branch thereof will not cease, though the root thereof wax old in the earth, and the stalk thereof die in the ground. Yet through the scent of water Yet through the scent of water, you know what? It can be cut down, it can be cast out, it can be destroyed. But at the very scent of water, or let me change that to at the very scent of the Spirit, at the presence of the Spirit, though we have been slayed, though we, you know what? The Bible says that the wages of sin are death. Once we sin, we have no chance. But at the presence of the Spirit, if you will, yet through the scent of water it will bud and bring forth boughs like a plant. But man dieth and wastes away. Yea, man give up the ghost, and where is he? Oh, Jesus, Lord God, we ask you today that you would anoint the ears and the hearts of every person here, God. That, Lord God, that you have given a word, Lord, and we ask that this word find a lodging place, God. That, Lord, that it will find a place and take root. And, Lord God, at the presence of the Spirit, it will begin to bud and bring forth life. Lord God, we ask you to touch each person here this morning. Oh, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. Oh, in your precious name, Jesus. You may be seated. Cut the tree down. Brother Chad, cast it away. But at the very scent of water, it will live again. It will bring forth a bud. You know what? Growing up in the country, you can, well, you don't even have to grow up in the country. You can drive down the road and drive by fence lines that have old wooden posts that have been, you know, that they've been cut into wooden posts for, man, how long has it been since they even made posts like that? Decades. And they're dry. They're dry. It's dead. But you know what? Let it rain. And you begin to see a leaf begin to grow out of that fence post. You'll see life begin to spring forward out of something that was dead. You know what? We are that same way. We begin to die and rot away. The Bible says that the wages of sin are death, and that because of sin that we all must die. It says that we will give up the ghost. But you know what? If we can just come in contact with that Spirit. If we can just come in contact with that Spirit. I was reading about, I was doing some studying last night, and I looked up the first sin. I Googled it, the first sin. And everybody knows, what is the first sin? The first sin? Who was the first one to sin? Adam and Eve was the first human to sin. Obviously, there was sin for Satan to be cast out. And you know, as I was reading this, and everybody knows the scripture, and I'm going to read it, but Genesis chapter 3, verse 1 says, Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field, which the Lord God had made. And he said unto woman, Yea, hath God said, Ye shall not eat of the tree of the garden. And the woman said unto the serpent, We may eat of it, the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God hath said, Ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. And the serpent said unto the woman, Ye shall not surely die. You know what? He had her questioning her faith. He had her questioning what God had said. Now, I will point out that when God told them not to eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, Eve was the first to eat of the fruit. But Eve had not even been created yet when God told Adam. If you will read that, it tells him in chapter 2 that he shall not eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Eve wasn't created till later. It was several verses later where God created Eve after he had already told Adam. So it was Adam's job. Adam was the man of God. It was Adam's job to direct Eve in what she should do. When I Googled this last night just to see what it would say about the first sin, I was kind of surprised because it talks about sin. But you know, just like the world, it is much more interested in placing blame than it was talking about sin. Man, so many hundreds, thousands of pages talking about, well, it wasn't really Eve's fault that she sinned, it was Adam's fault. And well, you know, if Adam had done his job, then Eve would have known not to eat of the fruit. Now, you know what? Regardless of what happened, Eve ate of the fruit. Eve ate of the fruit. And because of that, and God recognized her as the first transgressor. That's when, and thank God she was. Men, could you imagine if it was man that sinned first and we had to be the ones to bear babies? I am so glad that Eve was the one that sinned first. I guarantee you I couldn't do it. But just like the world, and we're talking Bible scholars, are trying to place blame on whose fault it was for that first sin. Rather than get to the root of the problem. Rather than just say, you know what, repent and ask for forgiveness, change your ways. It was more about whose fault it was. It doesn't matter whose fault it was. You know what, brother, I can do something to present sin to you, and it's still up to you whether you partake of that sin or not. I can't make you sin. She knew, Adam had obviously told her not to eat of the fruit because she told the serpent, we shall eat anything we want except for that one. It's so important that we know, because that's what it was. You know, the serpent, she was snake bitten. She was bitten. She was that poison that makes you begin to question your faith. He said, thou shalt not surely die. And she's thinking back, that is what I was told. Maybe I heard that wrong. You know what? When you have presentation of sin in your life, everybody's seen the little cartoon where you have the angel pop up on one shoulder and the devil pop up on the other shoulder, and the angel's telling you, you know what, don't do that. That's not what you want to do. That's not the right way to go. But the devil's saying, oh, but look at that fruit. It looks so good. And that's exactly what's going on, because you've got her saying, oh, no, we shall not eat of that fruit, unless we shall surely die. We can have anything else. You know what you think about? They could have anything. They could have eaten the tree of life. They would have never died. Never died. They could have eaten anything they wanted. But you know what? The devil will present to us the one thing that's off limits. And you know what? We have to make that decision whether or not we will partake of that fruit. We make that decision, are we going to follow God? Are we not going to follow God? You know what? We hear in our minds, I promise you, people here this morning heard God talking to them saying, this is what you need to do. I want you to pray. I want you to repent. I want you to seek God. And people to themselves are saying, does he really want me to do that? Do I really need to pray? Is it really necessary? You know what? I've heard so many times people say, I'm not going to that altar. I'm not going in front of people. I'm not going to go up there and pray in front of everybody. I don't want to let people know that I've sinned. I don't want people to know what I've done in my life. There's no way I'm going up there in front of people. And you know what happens? They'll sit right there in their seat and they'll die in their sin. Galatians chapter 5 says that a little leaven will leaven the whole lump. You know what? You let the smallest bit of sin in your life and it will grow. You know, leaven is yeast. Yeast is a bacteria. Right? How do we kill bacteria? Without chemicals. Extreme heat or extreme cold. Managing restaurants, I can tell you that in between, if you get anywhere in between there, bacteria will thrive. It will multiply. It will grow. So much so that not only were you questioning the word that you had heard before, but man, it's making so much noise that you don't even remember the word you heard before, because all you have is what's going on right now, that growth. It's growing, it's getting stronger and stronger and stronger, Brother Chad. You know what, that bacteria, that sin in your life will grow so much so that you forget there even was goodness there. When we sin, we allow something in that, like I said earlier, that, an old saying that I heard that, you give the devil an inch, and before long, he'll be a ruler. You let sin in your life, it doesn't matter what it is. It could be the simplest thing. Let sin in your life, and it will grow, it will thrive, and it will rule your life. And you know what? It never starts out. It never starts out this groundbreaking thing that everybody can see. It never starts out being something, it don't start out with you making sacrifices and praying or making pentagrams. That's not where it starts at. Everybody thinks about devil worship, and everybody thinks about Satanism and the things. But do you know what Satanism really is? Anybody know what Satanism really is? No. It's what? Satanism is not about worshiping Satan. So see, that the world will tell you that's what it is. But in reality, so we think about Christianity is us becoming Christ-like and worshiping Jesus. So by virtue, that would mean that Satanism has to be worshiping Satan. That's what the world wants you to think. Because if you knew that really all Satanism is putting yourself first, then we'd be on guard for that, and we wouldn't let it happen. But you know how I told you a few weeks back about how the average American, young child, old person, the average American will see 9,000 sex scenes on television in 1 year. It doesn't start out with them seeing porn. It doesn't. It starts out with the slightest little bit of flesh. The smallest thing. You know what? You see just for instance, what do people find attractive? What does a man find attractive on a woman? Without looking at specific body parts, or without looking at body parts that are really bad, you look at a calf, that muscle, the definition. You look at just the smallest thing that will make you want to see more. That little bit. So see, modesty, we believe in modesty. We believe you don't show your body off. We believe that your body is between you and your husband. But if your husband sees the slightest little bit of a body, sees a woman showing off what God gave her in the world or on television, you know what? It's not unnatural for them to want to see more, because they've already seen that first little bit. It all starts with that first thing, and before long you have a husband that's coming home and he's looking at porn on the internet. It doesn't start out something that's so big that it's recognizable. It starts out with something small enough that it's acceptable. You know what? It doesn't start out. So you used to, when I was a kid, there was no bad language on television. Now they can say the F word. They can say the P word. They can say, there's really no bounds to what can be said. But you know what? It started one step at a time. It took years to get to the point it is now. And now television is nothing but filth. Almost every show you see anymore on television, if you were to watch, I don't even know what's on television anymore, because we haven't had regular TV in forever. But if you watch television, there's so much, it starts out softcore porn. And you know what? That is just something to open you up to seeing more. You don't realize it. You don't think anything of it because it's a small step. But those small things lead to big things. Those small things, the Bible says a little leaven will leaven the whole lump. You know what? Once you get it started, the only way to get rid of it is by fire. Extreme heat. Receiving the Holy Ghost. The Bible says we will be baptized in water and fire. You know, that's one reason I believe that this world, and this is off a little bit, Joseph told me this morning that it's great you give us these notes, but just make sure you stick to them. Don't go off somewhere else. This is going off somewhere else, but just for a second. You know, the world was already purged from sin one time with water. And the rainbow was a sign from God that, you know what, even though the water's coming, even though it's raining, even though you see the moisture, it was a promise from Him, a sign from Him that He would never again destroy the earth with water. But the Bible says that we will be purged with water and with fire. I really believe that this world will end in nuclear war. I believe that will be the fire that will clean this world, that will purge this world. And we are so close to that. You know what? They tried to get Putin to say a while back that he would vow not to use nuclear tactics in Ukraine. He refused to do so. He refused to say that was off the table. I really believe that when this world ends, I believe it's going to be purged with the fire of nuclear war. Man, there ain't nothing lived through that. But a little bit of leaven, Brother Brandon, just that little bit of sin, just the first thing to make you curious for more. You know, several years ago, we went to the United Pentecostal Church in Rogers, Arkansas, and I make fudge, and I make really good fudge, just saying. But we make fudge. We were trying to raise money. We were taking, what did we take that year, Michelle? 83 people to Youth Congress? 83 people from Rogers, Arkansas to Columbus, Ohio, and staying in hotels and paying for a huge bus and food and all the stuff that, very expensive. It took thousands and thousands of dollars. Now, this was back in 2007. So not as much as it is now, but it was pretty pricey. And we were doing everything we could do to raise money. Took a lot of money. We, like I said, 83 kids. So one of the things we did, I made fudge. And one of the youth pastors, his wife, her degree's in marketing, and she's like, oh, I got this idea. Let's do this. So I made fudge, and one day we gave a piece of fudge to everybody that came in. And then after everybody had that fudge, she auctioned it off by the pound. You know what? We gave everybody a taste just so they would desire more. They had that little bit, and it wasn't enough. They had to have more of it. And you know what? I think, what do we end up selling fudge for, Michelle? $18 a pound? $18 a pound, but just having that little bit wasn't enough. They were willing to pay to get more of it. You know what? You ever known somebody, a drinker, somebody who drinks? Generally, one beer isn't enough. One shot isn't enough. One mixed drink isn't enough. They have to have more. Because you know what? You don't get the feeling you want from that one drink. You have to have more. Which, interestingly, do you know what alcohol is full of that bacteria? I mean, you put a little bit in there and it begins to explode. But you're not able to stop with that one. People, and I don't remember the exact numbers. I'm going to remember as close as I can. But do you know what the statistics are for somebody who does meth the first time to not get on the habit of doing meth all the time? Something like 83% of people will do meth for the next several years because they get enough of a feeling and enough of a rush that they have to have more. They have to have more. Do you know why marijuana is known as a gateway drug? Because they get that high, and that high feels so good that they crave it. You know what? They lose pain. They lose all the sensation that makes them feel bad. They lose the anxiety. They lose all of the stuff. So they have to have more of it. They have to have more. They have to have more. They have to have more. But that feeling is so great that, man, what else could I do to have even more feeling? So now they move on to something else. They'll move on to pills. They'll move on to meth. They move on to stronger stuff because they have to have that feeling. That little bit wasn't enough. And they have to go further. They have to. You know what? Sin in our life is like eating a piece of chocolate cake. Well, or I'll give you another example first. Lay's potato chips. Their logo or their slogan is what? No one can eat just one. And by darn, they're right. Man, you eat one chip and then another chip and then another chip and then a second bag. You can't stop with just the one. Between the salt, the oil, the MSG, your body craves more of it and more of it and more of it. You know, man, I love Pringles potato chips. And they didn't come up with a catchy slogan that you can't eat just one, but you know what? Last time I saw Pringles potato chips, they now come in a 4-pack, 4 cans, because they know you're going to eat and eat and eat. You can't have just a little bit of something and be satisfied. We lack discipline, and that keeps us from being able to do that. You know, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but you don't get a body like this with stopping at one piece of chocolate cake. Actually, I don't like chocolate cake. Let's do yellow cake. You know what? You don't get to be my size by saying having one piece of cake and saying that's enough. I got to be this size by giving Michelle one piece of cake and saying that's enough. The rest is mine. Sin will grow in your life. You can't have just a little bit. It's going to grow. And you know what? One sin will lead to another sin and another sin. And you know what? We find ourselves so entrapped and enslaved by the very things that we hate. You know, most people who are addicts that any kind of addiction, not just drugs, but any kind of addiction, it can be alcohol, it can be cigarettes, they hate the fact that they're doing it. They just can't stop. They don't have the self-control, they don't have the motivation, they don't have the will to stop. Because that little bit, that feeling they get from that, you know, it's something that it's irreplaceable, we think. It's irreplaceable of this world. You start to get a little bit and you have to have more of it. Romans chapter 5, verse 12 says, whereas by one man's sin entered into the world. By one man. You think about all the sin that's in this world. It all started with one man. Now, you will notice that it was one man, not one person. Eve was the first to eat of the fruit. It was Adam's job to instruct her not to teach her not to. But you know what? Scripture that had me most, that I caught from this most was, let me find it here. In that verse, Sister Faith, if you will look in Genesis chapter 3, I believe it's verse 5, and I didn't put it in my notes, but can you put 3 and 5 up there? Okay, that's not it. So anyway, this verse where Eve was the first to eat of the fruit, but if you'll read that, it says, that she gave to her husband who was there with her. Adam was right there. Adam had received word directly from God not to eat of that fruit. But when we put ourselves, you know, everybody's heard, you know, it's what? Verse 6. Can you put that up there, Sister Faith? Genesis 3 and 6. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food and that it was pleasant to the eyes, a tree to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof and did eat, and gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat. You know what? When we allow ourselves to be tempted, when you put temptation in front of you, when we allow something that we know is not right to be put in front of us, you know, we tempt ourselves to do something that, man, we're flesh. We don't have what it takes to be able to say no. You know what? He was tempted of Satan. He was tempted of the devil. It said, you shall not surely die. And it says that, it doesn't say Adam said anything about it, but you know, Adam had to be thinking, is that right? I thought God said that. But you know what? The Bible, there's one place in the Bible where it says, take the word and hide it in your heart. Hide the word in your heart. If you don't hide that word in your heart, when you know what, when you're tempted of the devil, and you will be. You will be. You know what? I don't know how many people believe in wedding rings. Everybody believe in wedding rings? I believe in wedding rings. A lot of people don't. Now, my wedding ring is silicone, so I didn't go spend a couple $1,000s on a ring. But you know what I believe? I believe that by me wearing a wedding ring, that it will at least let other people know that I'm married. That the temptation that may be set in front of me, at least they can see that I'm married. Also, when you have that temptation, and you know what, I don't know why, I've had women come to me and I always come home and tell Michelle about it, but I told a lady at Pizza Hut one night who was a customer, told her that I was married, and I showed her my wedding ring, and I was told, you know what, a wedding ring is nothing more than a speed bump. It's not that big of a deal. And you know what? A lot of people will give into that. When you've got a very attractive woman in front of you, it's our flesh. You know what? Anything sexual I'm sorry? It's pleasing to the flesh, but it's evolutionary. Our body knows that sexual matters is how we reproduce. It's evolutionary for us to see things in that way and for us to pursue that. So I wear a ring so that most people, most honorable people, would not come to me and say anything, do anything. I also wear it for myself to remember, you know what, I'm married. I've made a vow that I can't break. I think it's important. But that serpent was subtle. And you know what? While they weren't physically bit, they were snake bitten by that serpent. They were bitten. They got that poison in them from that serpent. That poison that, you know what, a poison of a snake can kill somebody fast. The poison of a snake, a rattlesnake, man, the poison will tear them apart so fast. It will kill them so fast. But the serpent said unto the woman, ye shall not surely die. From our very beginning, from the very time we were created, we've been destined for trouble. We've been destined for it. And you know why that is? Because the devil was created to have that relationship with God. The devil was created, he was the one that so the praise of the angels would go through Lucifer. And those praises would pass. He was covered in jewels. He was covered, so that the light, he was called the angel of light. Those praises would go through him. And the worship of God, he felt that power. He was tempted. He loved that feeling. And because of that, I believe he started to try to stop the angels from praising God. You know what? Let this praise come to me. We don't need to pass that praise on. It all needs to come here. You know what? He let that temptation lead him into sin. But because of that, and because Satan went from having that relationship with God to instead being cast out and not be able to have the joy that he used to have, he let sin come in. And you know what? Now, the interesting thing is, I believe God's a just God. The Bible says he's just. You know what? If Satan had the aptitude, I guess, to repent, I believe Satan would have been fully restored. Because it says he's a just God. It would not be just of him to restore us if he didn't restore Satan. I believe he would have been restored, but I believe that Satan wanted it so bad that he lost sight of anything he had before. I believe that sin began to well up in him and grow so much that all of the times of him being in God's presence, all of the time that he was in there, that he had that feeling, was covered up. It was covered up with that sin, and he forgot about. All he can remember is the sin. All he can remember is, man, I love the way that feels. I love that they're praising me, even though they weren't praising him. But it was channeled through him. I believe that kept him from being able to repent. Sin is kind of like sand. You ever go to a wedding where instead of doing a unity candle, they do the sand? You've never seen that? So what they do is the family, there'll be a pink sand, or I guess pink. It would make more sense for it to be pink and blue. But they'll have two different colors of sand. And you know what? As they pour it in, if you put it in layers, you'll see a layer of pink and a layer of blue, or however they do it, okay, whatever colors it is. But they take that at the end and they shake it up. They take that sand, it's two distinct different colors. But they shake it up, and now it's become one color. And it's impossible to be able to separate that and put it back to the color where it started. Because when you look at it individually, so it only takes the color of pink or only takes the color of blue when it's in a group of blue. But if you take one single piece, you can't tell what color it is. You can't tell that it's pink sand. You can't tell that it was blue sand. It's impossible to separate life and take the sin back out once you've put it in. It's impossible. This body is destined to die to sin. There's no way to take it back. There's no way to reverse that. I can't take that pink sand back out. But God made a way. God made a way. This body will still pass. This body will still die. But God made a way that he could separate us. The first step, though, I really believe is, as I said, when you Google the sin about Adam and Eve, instead of arguing about who was the first to sin, whose responsibility sin was, we first have to acknowledge that we are responsible for our own sin. Regardless of, Eve was the first to sin, but she gave it to Adam. He sinned as well. When God said, when God was walking through the garden, he said, Adam, wherefore art thou? And Adam came out and he said, well, here we are over here. And he said, we hid ourselves because we were naked. God said, how did you know you were naked? Who told you were naked? He begins to ask him, why would you fall to sin? And what did Adam say when God asked him why? He said, well, God, it was that woman that you gave me. That woman. That woman you gave me. She gave me of the fruit, and I did eat. But it was her fault. She brought it to me. It was her fault. There's always going to be somebody else that we can blame sin on. There's always going to be somebody else. You know what? You talk with people that, say an addict, especially drugs. You know what? They will tell you what they've done, and they will tell you that the reason they started doing that. Well, I'll tell you. I'll give you a better example. I had a talk a couple of weeks ago with somebody, and he told me, he said, I've started doing things I shouldn't be doing. I've started smoking. I've started drinking. I've started vaping. I've started doing stuff that I shouldn't be doing. I said, why would you do that stuff? He's like, well, there's just so much stress. I've just got all this stress to deal with. I've got all of this stuff going on in my life. I just needed something to help me get rid of the stress. And I said, who told you smoking would get rid of stress? Who told you that drinking would get rid of stress? And how many people have you heard that they drink because they're stressed out? They got too much going on. A bunch. Do you know alcohol is actually a depressant? Alcohol depresses the central nervous system. Alcohol will cause you more depression. But you know what? We let the world tell us that, well, if you'll just do this, it will ease that, and you can that will help you deal with what you know what? It doesn't help deal with anything. All it does is it suppresses things that it's going to come out in a much bigger and louder way. But it gives us a way to say, well, you know what? It's not my fault I do this. I do this because I was abused as a child. Who wasn't? Who wasn't? You know what? Do you know statistically 1 out of 3 women have been sexually abused? Do you know statistically 1 out of 5 men have been sexually abused? Who hasn't been abused? You know what I don't do? I don't kill my brain cells so that I can help forget about it. I don't go out and I don't blame somebody else for the way I live my life. That stuff doesn't help anything. It doesn't fix anything. It doesn't solve anything. It helps you to suppress it. It helps you to forget it for a little bit. But you know what happens? You forget it for a little bit. But when I said that the little leaven will leaven the whole lump, a few minutes later, it's coming back. That memory's coming back, and now you have to have more of it. And a little bit later, now you have to have more of it, and more of it, and more of it. And sooner or later, you get to your point where your brain has become habituated to the substances you've been shoving into it. Now it doesn't work anymore. Now you got to go to something else. Now you got to have something else. Now you got to do something else. And it just works the same way. But you're addicted to the first thing. So now not only have you brought a new thing, not only have you got a second sin, but now you're trying to appease the first sin too, because there's an addiction there that doesn't just go away. Don't tell me you were abused. Who was? And I don't mean to sound that like I'm not sympathetic. I don't want to sound like that at all. But what I'm telling you is the world will tell you this will cover it up. The world will tell you all you need to do is a little bit of this and everything gets better. That's not true. It's a bacteria that you're applying the right amount of heat to that it thrives, and it will grow exponentially. You've been snake bitten. You've got that poison from that serpent who was so subtle telling you, you know what, just a little bit of this, it'll make you feel better. just a little bit of this. It'll make you feel better. Just a little bit of this. Just a little. And well, now that's not making you feel any better, so we have to add something else in. So just a little bit of this now. Just a little bit of this. And all you're doing is adding to your problem that you can't afford anyway. But you know what it's doing is it's keeping you further and further from God, because as Adam and Eve sinned, the Bible says that every day in the cool of the evening that God would walk in the garden with Adam. But when Adam had sin in his life, what did he do? He hid himself. When you have sin in your life, you hide yourself. You don't want God to see where you're at. You don't want people in church to know where you're at. You don't want family to know what you're doing, because you know you're wrong. You know you shouldn't be doing it. So you hide yourself. You've got snake bitten. You've let that poison get into you that is killing you. But it was so subtle. It came on so slow. It was just a little bit at a time, one step at a time, one step at a time, to a point where now there's nothing you can do. Whether or not you realize that you're dying inside, that sin becomes death. You know, most of us, if we could go back and start over, most of us wouldn't go down the same way because we've learned something from it. But you know what? There's still some that have not been taught, that have not learned how to deal with things and be patient and let things. You know, some people like the fact that they have to have the chemicals and the substances. They like it. Most don't. But you know what? When you get so much of Satan inside of you, when you have so much devil, you forgot what good was. You forget what it's like to live right. You forget what it's like to serve God. In Acts chapter 4, Ananias and Sapphira made a choice. You know what? They made a choice. They sold property, and they didn't have to give any of it to God. They didn't have to give any of it to the church. But they made a choice to say, you know what? We're going to say we sold this, but this is what we sold it for, and we're going to say we're giving it all to the church, but we're really going to keep this much back for ourselves. You know what? They made a choice. They let the devil come to them subtly and tell them, you know what? They don't need all of that. Look, you keep part of this, and just tell them you gave it all. That way you get the praise and you get the adulation, but you still have the money. They were snake bitten, and they died. They died. Can you imagine? They weren't together when they died, and Peter tells Ananias, why have you lied to the Holy Ghost? And he fell over dead. Just a couple of minutes later, the wife comes. Sapphira, actually, I think Sapphira's the woman, yeah. Weird names back then. I'm glad we don't have those names now. But, you know, a couple of minutes later, Sapphira comes in. And, you know, it should have been a clue. When he's asking, now, did you really sell it for this? And you gave all of it to the church? That should have been a clue. But you know what? When you live in sin, it takes one sin to cover up another sin. You can't admit that you lied. You can't admit that that was sin. You can't admit that you did wrong. Oh, yeah, that was the truth. And he said, you know what? The footsteps of the men that carried away your husband are at the door. And she fell over dead. She was snake bitten. She was snake bitten. She gave in to the serpent. She let what he had to say take root in her life. Both of them did. I read a story one time about a sheep. The sheep had been bit by a rattlesnake. And when it got bit, its face swelled up real bad. It looked like death. It hurt. It cried. It was bad. I mean, it looked really bad. Anybody ever raised sheep? Anybody know anything about sheep? Good. But it got bit by a rattlesnake. And its face was all swelled up. They said you couldn't even tell it was a sheep anymore. The way it looked, it was just all swelled up. That poison, that toxin got inside of it. And, I mean, it looked like it was killing that sheep. It looked, I mean, and if it was a person, they would have died from it. But you know what? That sheep, do you know what they make? Do you know what they make the anti-venom from for a rattlesnake? Out of the blood of the lamb. So while that lamb was sick, that lamb swelled up, it hurt, it was in pain. The blood of the lamb was able to eventually overtake the venom from the snake. And the lamb was able to live. You know what? A couple more examples. King Agrippa, when Paul was preaching to Agrippa, and Agrippa said to him, Paul, almost thou persuadest me to be a Christian. Almost thou persuadest me to be a Christian. You know what? Agrippa died in his sin. That sin comes in. He wasn't willing to give it up. The rich young ruler that came to Jesus and tells Jesus, you know what, I've kept all of these commandments. What more can I do? And he said, you know what, sell all that you have. Give it to the poor and follow me. He went away. He said it was very sorrowful because everything he had meant more to him than following Jesus. They've been snake bitten. They've been snake bitten. I'm telling you this morning that every one of us have sin in our lives. Every one of us have sin that will eat you up, make your insides rot and deteriorate, will kill you. Will kill you. You ever known somebody that had something happen in their life and they were so bitter about it that years later they still haven't been able to forgive somebody and just nobody can stand to be around them because they're so bitter. They've let their insides just deteriorate. You know what? They can handle, they can talk about it now, but just the thought of that one person or that one thing that happened, just the thought of that one thing will tear them up so much inside. They become so bitter and they're hateful. And they wish death upon whatever the situation was that caused that bitterness. They've been snake bitten. They've been snake bitten. If you're living today and you've got that animosity, you've got that hatred in your life because something happened to you so many years ago, you've got that venom in you that's tearing you up, Brother Chad. It's swelling you from the inside. And any goodness that's in your life is just taken over by the anger, the hatred, the bitterness. There's no way you can live with that. There's no way somebody can live with that kind of hatred in their life. But you know what? I'm telling you this morning that if you will just apply the blood of the Lamb, if you will just apply, if you will begin to allow the blood of the Lamb to come in and cover your body, cover your sin, cover your mistakes, that sin that's inside of you that is killing you will begin to heal you. That blood will take over. That blood will come in and the swelling will begin to diminish. The fever will go away. The sin will be gone. But you know what? It takes us allowing the blood of the Lamb. It takes us allowing that conviction. It takes us, you know what? I have no doubt, like I said earlier, there's somebody here today that God is still working with. There's somebody here today that while we were in praise and worship, they could feel God knocking at their heart. They could feel God saying, you know what, just let me in. I know you're hurt. I know you've been damaged. I know you've been wounded. I know that you've got things in you that make you feel like you just want to die. And if you don't let me in, you're going to. But if you'll just let me in, if you'll let the blood of the Lamb, you'll notice there's then the blood of the Lamb. If you can you guys see that well enough from there? That's the earth. That's the United States. That's Europe. That's Russia. That blood is for everybody. There's nobody here that cannot have the blood of the Lamb, that cannot be covered in the blood of the Lamb. How do you apply that blood? How do we apply that blood to our lives? That hatred, that bitterness, that anger, that death that's inside of you that will happen. The Bible says the wages of sin are death. The wages of sin are death. But if we will just apply the blood of the Lamb, if we will allow that blood to be applied to us, how do we do that this morning? I'm sorry? Baptism. Before we can get to baptism, there has to be repentance. And you know what? I honestly don't believe that you can be repented if you've got bitterness in your heart. I believe that's something else you have to repent of in itself. I believe that you have to go to the person that hurts you. I believe that you have to go to that situation. You have to be able to confront that situation in order to apply the blood. But you know what? If you hear me this morning and you've got that blood, if you hear me this morning and you've got the sin in your life, you've got the death, you've got the pain, you've got the hurt, you've got the agony, just apply the blood. Apply the blood. The blood is applied at the altar. The altar is here. If you would, stand with me this morning. Cindy, can you bring the keyboard? You know what? I know. And you know what? I'm not trying to get anybody to single themselves out. Sister, you want to sing? I'm not trying to get anybody to single themselves out. I'm not getting anybody to tell anybody what has happened in their life or what has hurt them or who they've hurt or what you've done to try to escape it. But you know what? I'm telling you this morning that there is a need for you to come to the altar. There is a need for you to be here. There is a need for you to accept the blood. Because you know what? While the sheep swelled up, while the sheep had fever, while the sheep was in pain and agony and crying, it eventually got over it. But if you don't apply the blood, if you don't apply that blood, if you don't let that blood begin to be mingled with yours, if you don't use the blood and become white as snow, you won't get over it. You won't get over it. And the longer we wait, the harder it gets. The longer we wait, the longer you have God calling you, the longer you have God saying, just let me in. Just let me come in and talk to you. You know what? After a little while, you stop hearing it. He's still knocking. But when you become so focused on something else, you stop hearing the knock. And it just begins to go away. You know what? Don't allow yourself, do not allow yourself to leave here without applying the blood of the Lamb. Don't allow yourself to walk out of here without taking that anti-venom. You know, I thought that was interesting that, you know, Satan was, the Bible calls him the serpent. And the only way to fix the wrong that was made by the serpent is with the blood of the Lamb. You know what? The sacrifice has already been made. The blood has already been shed. All you have to do this morning is claim it. That's all you have to do is claim it. You know, there's more to being a follower of Christ than just calling yourself a Christian. There's more to being a follower of Christ than just being baptized. It is a walk and a life that we must work at every single day. You know what? Forgiveness doesn't come easy. We can't forgive. We can't forgive without God. We don't have the capacity for it. But you know what? God is here this morning, and God is trying to give you everything you need to be able to apply the blood. If that's you this morning, come to the altar. Come and let us pray with you. Come and let us give you that anti-venom. Let us give you that blood that is necessary. That blood that's necessary to counteract the venom. You know what? Like I said, sin is not something that overtakes you right away. There's a song called A Slow Fade. And that's what it is. It's a slow fade. You know what? One day, Rome didn't just become so powerful that it was able to conquer the world. But over time, they came to power and they conquered the world. Sin will not overtake your life in one day. But it will overtake your life for the rest of your days. It's a slow fade. Don't walk out of here. Don't leave here without applying the blood. Oh, don't leave here without applying.